So Wilmot's Warehouse is the only new game in the entire.
That's okay.
Everything else is like at least a year old.
That's fine by me, baby.
I think that makes sense.
Oh, you mean to start with that because it's new? Is that what you're suggesting?
I mean, I would put that as the more relevant title, but I don't know if it's also. It also doesn't have a ton.
Yeah, it doesn't matter though. That's fine if it's.
But whatever. Also, John, you're probably going to have something to say on most of these conversations.
Yeah, this is going to be a John episode.
Yeah, John heavy, baby, carrying the weight.
Jonathan, as it were.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. This is episode number 20, and my name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with our host Randall Nollery.
Hey everybody.
And we've got our buddy John Hines. He's going for a month straight marathon
That's
here.
Right.
Ooh,
he basically moved in. He's paying me rent. Yeah. So, but no, John's filling in for DJ again this week, and he's actually been the only one out of any of us playing anything new this week. So
Thanks,
why don't we let John kick us off with a little game called Wilmot's Warehouse.
So yeah, I've been playing Wilmot's Warehouse, which is an indie title that recently came out, and you play as Wilmot, which is Jesus Christ.
A box. It's like a box boy.
Yeah, it's a very similar aesthetic. It's a very minimalist, very hard angles aesthetic, where you are a little boxy character named Wilmot, and you are in this warehouse that receives shipments of various objects that could be classified in any variety of ways. And it's a very sparsely, or very what's the word I'm looking for?
Minimalist,
yeah, minimalist aesthetic, where for the most part your screen is either black or white, and it's only when you are very close to items that your field of vision shows what they are. Otherwise, they're just an outline of a box without showing what the actual object is. So it is a very memory-heavy game where you have to organize these different objects that you are delivered at the beginning of each phase around the warehouse, and there is no guidance whatsoever. Like, it is all entirely up to you.
Like, you don't have a map or anything like that.
Right. And like, there are these pillars that are there at the beginning of the game, which can sort of serve as guideposts when you have like very few items. But as you progress in the game, like every successful phase you engage in, you will unlock 4 new items, which will be in sometimes they're in different categories. And I think it's randomly generated what category they're in at any given point for any playthrough. So for mine, I started off with, I think, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and there's no words associated with all these objects. They're purely visual, and it's up to you to organize them however you want. There is a tutorial phase where, they have like it places a few items in front of you. For me, it was like clothing and then winter. And for like, it showed you like, oh, here's a snowflake and here is a sandal. So I would put the sandal in the clothing and the snowflake in the winter. But then after like in the very next phase, it shows you, oh, right, but here's a winter jacket. And it shows you that like there's no wrong place to put that. And because the game doesn't tell you where to put objects, it's a tutorial that's almost unnecessary, but it does get you in the right frame of mind to think about how to organize things.
Okay.
So for me, like, I started organizing all the animals in one area, and then all the fruit, and then I was just getting a ton of footwear. Like, I'm assuming that there is plenty more clothing options, but my unlocking scheme was only unlocking different types of shoes.
Okay.
I'm assuming that there are other types of clothing that are in it, but for the time being, like, it's doing a good job of slowly introducing things that I'm guessing the game itself categorizes in different things. But for me, like, I have my own areas that I've decided, okay, I'm putting all the buttons and switches in this area. And, like, I know that that's where those are. And I'm putting all of the, like, fruit in one area and then the sliced fruit in another area. Like, there's so many subcategories that your brain immediately starts assigning to things.
Yeah.
So, like, every time that they introduce new objects, like, that'll like a shipment will come in and I'll see an object and I'll be like, ooh, I know where I'll put that item. Or I'll start to, like, think is like, okay, I don't know where I'll put a sunset. Like, that doesn't fit into any of the categories that I've made, so I'll make that a new category, and then I start getting things like clouds and, like, rain, and I'm like, okay, that'll be the weather area. So, like, you start to, like, think about things in a way that the game never forces you to think about. Like, it's all, like, self-guided, and it's all things that you think about.
So there's not like a little room that says weather.
No.
And you go and bring all the weather stuff there. Like, you're just deciding, hey, this little cubby.
It's all for your ease of play.
Okay,
Like,
so all these categories that you're referring to, like, this is just in your brain.
yes, this is stuff that I've thought about personally.
Okay, and what is the perspective? It's like a
top down. Yeah, it's a top down, and, like, at the bottom of the screen is where the truck comes in and makes the deliveries at the beginning of the, like, play phases, which are timed phases. So, like, the delivery phase will start and they will drop off all the items at the bottom, and you will go as your character and you can only carry so many items, and you're, as a block, like, you're just moving up next to another block. They're all squares and it's all very regimented, but it's a very fluid control scheme. Like, you go up next to a box, you hit, like, the button to pick up the boxes. There's a button that you can pick up all of the type of, like, the same objects at the same time.
Nice.
You can pick them up and move them to another area, and you drop them off. So they will drop off the objects at the beginning of a phase, and you have a set amount of time. And then you will start the delivery phase where you're delivering items to your coworkers, which are at the top of the screen. Okay. And they will, there are 4 people who will want different items. Sometimes they'll want 3 of one item and then 2 of another. Sometimes they'll just want 2 of one item. And, like, it's your job to figure out where you have put these items in what categories and memorize where you've placed them in the way that makes sense to you.
And, okay.
Yeah. And there's you get stars based on how quickly you deliver them, and 2 coworkers will have stars that just that next to their delivery items, that when you deliver to them, you will gain those stars. So the whole thing is you deliver the items, you gain stars, and those unlock certain things. One of the things that I've unlocked, which is either you will get rid of the pillars, which at the beginning are good guideposts, but as you, like, get more items, and as you get, like, 10 of an item, say, then those pillars really get in the way because you can't maneuver 10 items around them and the objects that you've stored. So it's all about clearing space and effectively moving. You get a boost. I unlocked a map at one point, and that map was then buried because you could only access the map by going up to the map that was hung on a wall and interacting with it, and it was behind a bunch of objects that I had put there. So I was like, cool, this is garbage. I wasted a quarter of stars that I gained, but
yeah,
it's fun. Like, and as you, like, progress through the game, you gain motivational posters that tell you to lift with your back, not with your legs, which I don't think is correct. But
yeah, I can attest to that, Mr. Hernia over here.
Safety first.
But it's a very fun, like, the aesthetics of the game are just really, really delightful and, like, very minimalist, but, like, really soothing. And I was saying earlier, like, I was playing it with a friend, and I wasn't 100% sure if I could describe it as a fun game, but my friend, like, said that, oh, it's a satisfying game that, like, putting things in these categories and these specific areas just feels good. Like to like be like, oh, like this coworker needs these items. I know exactly where those are. I know the most efficient way to do that, and it's because I planned it earlier.
Right. And there's something satisfying about like games that have a little bit more of that like free-form nature where you're kind of making not the rules themselves, but like you're kind of structuring the format or the layout of your warehouse and this and that. Like it feels satisfying to then like see the fruits of your labor pay off in the end. Like, oh, because I organized so well in the first phase, I was able to just get everyone all the stuff they needed, thanks to the way I set this up,
Absolutely.
And I like that feeling.
And like in between, it's separated into quarters. Like there's a couple months. There's 3 months in each quarter of a year. So like quarter one is like January through March. And at the end of each quarter, there is a free phase where that isn't timed. That after you do those 3 timed phases or areas that are months that have the timed sections within them, you are given this free time where you can, because you don't always have time to actually organize everything. Once it like the timer ticks down, you're like, all right, I don't have a place for these items. They're just to the side.
Yeah.
And if I need them, I need them. But like after you get to the end of the quarter, then you give this like unlimited time area where you can finally organize everything as much as you want and put things where you need them to be. So
that's cool. And that'll keep compounding from quarter to quarter or month to month.
You keep getting new items. Like it's
okay. I was thinking this was more like in my head. I was picturing it almost like a tower defense kind of structure of like, okay, you do this wave or this level, and then it's the next challenge is just the next month is a totally separate.
As far as
challenge.
I can tell, it's contiguous, and I don't know
That's
if
really
there's an end, because like it also it starts in a year. Like I think it starts in like 1983. So like I'm in like 1985 or 6 right now.
Automation is coming for you.
Oh my god! But I know that there is a percentage, like when you get to the file screen, it's how many items you unlock, because you unlock 4 items at the end of each month.
Okay.
And that like increases the number of items that you have in your warehouse or the number of types of items you have in your warehouse.
Yeah, and probably how much more difficult the game gets. I would imagine the more items that are, that you have to juggle.
It's more of like keeping it track in your mind.
Yeah.
And, it's there's at least one item that I have no idea what it is. And it's just, I know exactly where it is because I can't categorize it, but it's like a red box with a yellow thing that it looks like a trumpet, kind of, but without like just the like valves and none of the keys or the bell or the mouthpiece. So I'm like, I just know that that's there, but I have no idea where to put it.
Miscellaneous category.
Yep.
Yeah.
John, are you someone that enjoys organization in your personal life?
I like organization in my work.
Yeah.
I do a very bad job of organization in my personal life.
Same. I was just trying to get a frame of reference for like, is that what's attracting you to this, or is there or is it because it's opposite that there's like an attraction?
No, it is definitely appealing to a specific set of impulses that I have, that everything needs to be in its right place.
Sure.
And it feels very good to put them there.
Of course.
And like having a very simplified version of that in the game itself, where it's like, oh yes, I've succeeded at putting everything in its right place.
Yeah, and with extra charm, that you don't get the charming aesthetics when you're doing your chores and putting stuff away and organizing your, I don't know, clothes or whatever. You don't get that same satisfaction when you get some charming, delightful music.
I don't get 10 stars when I put away my socks.
Feedback. No feedback. No. But yeah, this is one that I'm definitely, I definitely have some OCD tendencies myself. And I really like the idea, though, of like having a game that lets me put those skills or whatever you want to call them to use, but also not necessarily telling me that I'm wrong or not, like just being able to do things the way I think they should be done.
Right.
Absolutely.
And seeing if that works within the confines of the game or not,
Yeah.
and adapting. Because I do like, it seems like they're throwing curveballs at you where you're like, you think you have this category in your head, and then they throw you a winter jacket, and you're like, is it clothes or do I put it with the winter stuff? I don't know.
And
So
as far as I
like
can tell, there's not like a fail state either. I think it's just a matter of how well you do.
So it's like
level.
a high score chasing more than anything.
It's like I think you might be able to like finish. Like I think it would be hard to finish a level without getting any stars, but like it's just a matter of how many you get. It's not a matter of like, oh, if you don't do this during like before the time runs out, you fail. It's just like, yeah,
you had a bad quarter, and that's it. Yeah,
That sounds like good vibes.
Yeah.
No, I feel good playing this game.
Yeah.
Nice. And if I can, I'll try to remember to put a link to the trailer in the show notes, because it's definitely a just very charming trailer as well. You had texted me about it, like, hey, check this game out. And I watched the trailer, and it actually has Philippa War is her name. She's on the Crate and Crowbar podcast, and she just has a really charming voice, but it's also done in like a style that is like almost like she's just doing like a let's play and getting stressed out with all the as things pile up, and it's just very charming.
That's cool.
And definitely sold me on the game, or at least piqued my interest for sure. I haven't picked it up yet, but now I'm definitely even more curious than I already was. So
Same.
awesome. Well, I'm just going to totally shift gears here and talk about a game that has been out for quite a while. And I have personally not played hardly anything from this studio. It's from Platinum Studios, and the game is NieR Automata. So I actually fired up the PlayStation 4 and heard that thing chug, man. When I put a disc,
Heard those beautiful fans.
Yeah, when I put a disc in this system, man, I am like convinced every time that it will be the last time I turn on my PlayStation 4. But it just sounds like it's ready to blast off to the moon.
It's obnoxious, man. I don't turn mine on as often either for that reason.
It's crazy. Like I specifically make sure that like if I'm using it, because I do typically use it more for watching stuff like Netflix or wrestling or Amazon Prime or whatever.
Yeah.
And I typically when I because I've been playing NieR Automata not so much lately, but I will almost always make sure I don't have a disc in there just so it doesn't do that like first 2 minutes of like
Yeah.
It's like, oh, are you sure you want to power this thing up? But anyways, so once the fans quiet down and the system takes a load off, I can finally start playing some NieR Automata. And this game really caught me by surprise. I've heard a lot of good praise of both. Obviously Platinum Studios having done Bayonetta and a lot of these like just 3D third person action games over the years. That seems to be more their forte. Vanquish, they've done that's more of like a shooter, but still has that like frenetic. Or kinetic, to use one of our favorite words here on the podcast, like combat style, like more like the old God of War games, like almost like button mash combo kind of vibes. But NieR Automata is taking that general structure and like putting it into, it's still like it's very heavily like that's the combat style for sure. It's not so much button mash. I mean, it's a little button mashy, but there's other things going on as well. But you're essentially. Well, let me just start from the top with this game. So the game starts off, and the first chunk of gameplay, and it's like right off the bat, the tutorial is a tutorial teaching you how to play, but you're playing the game. You can probably die. I did not, but you probably can. And you are straight up playing like a vertically scrolling, pretty much bullet hell shmup right off the bat.
Oh wow!
And you're in this like mech suit, and you're flying vertically, and then all of a sudden it shifts to like a twin stick bullet hell shmup where like enemies are coming from all over the place, and you're actually using both sticks to aim around and shoot all over the place. And then like I can't remember if the suit breaks down or something happens and you have to land, and then you fight. You're on foot, and you get out of the suit, and you're fighting this like giant mech boss like right off the bat, or this robot boss, and you have melee abilities. You have 2 weapons that you can carry, up to 2 weapons, but then you also have this like drone character that follows you around, this like little robot floating drone that also is like you are using your right stick to aim a cursor and shoot with that character at the same time. And then you also can use The other fire button to like every so often you gotta let it charge up, but you get like a super powerful like laser blast. So you have all that paired with the typical like melee combat of the like Bayonetta or some of the other Platinum games like we've talked about before. Really, it doesn't have to be Platinum, but any like third person action game, fast paced, arcadey vibe. But it's really putting that within the structure of like a JRPG. Like it really feels like Final Fantasy, like PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 era games, both in like the world design. It's like the graphics are nice, but it's a little bit bland. It's like really gray.
Yeah.
And really it's missing something, but like really high
because it's like post-apocalyptic kind of.
It's all like dusty. Yeah. Everything's like supposed to look kind of run down, but little things like where it's like it clearly looks like you can squeeze through these buildings, but it's just like they just have decided that you can't go that way. That's not part of the map. But like, why wouldn't you just make the building then just cover that whole area? Like, why make it look like you can fit when your character can clearly fit through that gap and it won't let you run through? It's kind of frustrating to, the map's a little bit obtuse, not obtuse, but it's a little tough to read, at least when you're like trying to navigate where you want to go next. But I'm just having a ton of fun. And there's even like, it's a 3D third person action game, but you even get into a ton of chunks of the game where you're forced into like a side scrolling perspective. And you're doing like regular platforming and combat and stuff like that. And just a really well executed game. Like the voice acting is really great. The music sets the mood. It's, it's not as memorable per se, but when you get into the little towns and the little camps that you find, there's just some cool music. There's no auto save. So you, again, like we talked about with Chasm last week and some of these other games, like it really puts you on the edge of your seat, and it has a little bit of that Dark Souls element where you are playing like this. I forget what the term is, but you're like a robot essentially, or a clone of some kind. An android, yeah. And when you die, you have to go back and collect your body and but the way they do it is like you're actually like you get repaired and you have to go collect all your chips that you had installed because you're buying or getting these chips that you can either add new move sets to your character or add more information to the HUD. You can have a sound bar or more information on the mini map, or there's plenty more things that I can still unlock. I'm not sure what else they're gonna offer, but as you level up, you're getting more. You have like kind of a set pool of stats. Like I have 40 chip points that I can use, and each thing costs a certain amount of chip points to use. So it's just very interesting, and it's very like it's put together very cohesively to where like I'm getting sucked into this world big time, and it's like I don't know, there's not really, from what I can tell, I think I just unlocked fast travel where I can at these save points travel between the different save points, but you have to get to one. Again, you can't just pause and travel somewhere. And but you're running, like you can like do this dash and this sprint, and you run so fast, and it just feels so good to just like, it almost feels like a Sonic game when you're running. Like, I mean, you're whipping around and like using your momentum. Not, the course, it's not like laid out like obstacle courses or anything, but I don't know, the combat, it is a little button mashy, but it does do a nice job of balancing like the staying at a distance and, okay, I got to tackle this enemy for a little while with my guns and not do a ton of damage and use the laser blast at the right time. And then there's another element that I forgot to mention, but so there's certain bosses and certain enemies that most of these like projectiles that they fire at you are like these really bright, just like bullet hell games, like these bright purple orbs that start flying at you, whether you're playing in the bullet hell, like actually bullet hell style gameplay levels, or you're playing in the third person shooter, like these enemy or third person action game, like these enemies are shooting just bullets all over the place. You're running all over, dodging everything, but then they'll occasionally shoot out these yellow beams or these yellow projectiles. And if you get touched by those, they don't hurt you in the moment, but they go into like this hacking mini game where then it turns into like a really small arena. Like it's like a really minimalist aesthetic, and you just control this little like triangle, like prism ship. It's like a little ship basically, and it's like a twin stick shooter, and there's like this circle like gray sphere that chases you around and shoots stuff, and then as soon as you kill that thing, it jumps back into the normal game.
Wow.
But
Jesus.
if you take 3 hits in that little like confined area in the ship, then it does like hacking damage to you. and you take damage as your character, and it's crazy. Like I really thought this game was just a third-person action game
what I thought
from
too.
Platinum, and there is like, I mean, even the spirit of bullet hell shooters is like it baked into this game.
Nice,
like in every moment almost. Maybe not every moment, because not that where you're just going from town to town, but every combat encounter is like incorporating that, and there's just like a really like almost spooky vibe. Like everyone hates the robots because they're like the androids hate the robots because they're kind of like, but they're starting to become sentient, and they're starting to question like, hey, do these robots have feelings? Like, what's going on? And the voice acting is just very affecting, very good.
Nice.
You know, it's not perfect, but for a video game, I mean, it's solid stuff, and the music's great. I think I mentioned that already, but just like it's just a really well done game. I feel I'm just in that world, and I want to be in it. I think about it a lot when I'm not playing, and I'm excited to keep playing more.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I was wondering like how, like I knew it like switched from a lot of different genres, or it dipped its toes in like a bunch of different pools, but like that feels seamless. Like you said, it sounds cohesive.
Like there was one mission the last time I hadn't done any more like bullet hell or shmup style gameplay for a little while, so like pretty much since the beginning of the game, and I'm about 5 or 6 hours in, and but I got to a point where like they were like, okay, we can't do this mission. We just got our mech suits repaired or whatever. I forget what they're called, but like they're on top of this building, so you have to like you have to navigate to the building. But then when you get to the launch point, then you launch, and then you do that chunk of the boss battle in your suit, and then they find ways to like, oh, you took damage, oh, you got to get out of it. You know, they find ways to incorporate it into the, you know, narrative or whatever.
Right.
And, you know, there's a ton of little mini side quests. And one of the things, you know, small spoiler alert, and I have not even gotten to this point, but I know that there's like, as you beat the game with one character there, I believe then you go and play through the story with a second character, and then with a third character. And I think they do find ways to like streamline the...
It's built as like new game plus, but it's really like just chapters in the next, like it's the next chapter in the story.
Yeah,
like
seeing it from a different perspective and stuff. But it's done. It's not like you're playing the entire game again, but you are kind of. From what I understand, I don't really know 100%, but I'm excited to see. You know, with a lot of these big AAA or these bigger experiences, whether they're AAA or not, but these 50, 60, however many hour games, I don't typically see them through to the end, you know, but
same.
I am curious to see, because even what I've played so far, and just based on the stats and this and that, I mean, this seems like it's going to be a pretty meaty experience just with this first main character. So yeah, it would have to really probably do something pretty different for me to. I just don't see myself seeing it all the way through, just because I am who I am.
Right.
But it is something that maybe I'll do the thing where I like beat it as the one character and just kind of leave this game like, hey, I had a lot of fun with that. I'm going to leave that on the back burner, and when I get that urge again, I'll start up that second campaign or whatever and go from there. But I'm really excited to play more of this again, since it's I feel like lately I've been talking about stuff more often out of my, you know, typical 2D platformer comfort zone.
Right.
But this one is one that I'm genuinely like just super excited to go back to. You know, I've dabbled. I mentioned last week like NieR and No Man's Sky, totally different experiences, but that for whatever reason those aren't pulling me in just yet. I'm interested and I want to get sucked into them, but this one just did it automatically. You know, it just grabbed me and I was like, whoa,
NieR automatically.
There you go. Exactly.
Nicely done. Well said. Well, I really don't have too much more to say about this game unless you guys had anything else to ask. But yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun and looking forward to playing some more. And now that you can pick up, I see the Game of the Year edition go on sale for $25 bucks.
Pretty cheap.
Often,
now I'm definitely intrigued to pick this up cheap at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And one of those games that, and for what it's worth, it's kind of interesting. Like I kind of had forgotten that NieR was a game on PlayStation 3, I think. It might have even been PlayStation 2, but it was PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
But I had forgotten that this was like a sequel of sorts, or at least a, you know, part of a franchise. So kind of curious to see what that first game's all about too. So
yeah.
But But yeah, that was really all I had on that. But I think we can probably go from there to, I know you two have been dabbling in a little bit of Diablo 3. And I say a little bit. I think it might be a little more than a little bit, but
or it might be a little less than a little bit.
Okay, fair enough. But why don't you take us away, Randall? Because I know you and Tina have put quite a fair share of time into that.
Yeah, you don't put a small amount of time into Diablo 3. That's not how Diablo 3 works. In fact, we own this game on 2 different platforms. We bought the Reaper of Souls edition physically on PS4 back when that came out several years back, and then I saw that they were doing like the Ultimate Edition on Switch, and I'm like, you know what? This would be kind of a cool game to have portably too. Be cool to have on cartridge in kind of a more complete form. Yeah, let's go for that too. So we did that and like restarted all over again, and I picked one of the characters that was in the latest Necromancer expansion pack. I played as a Necromancer, and I think Tina played as the what should she do, like Demon Hunter or Wizard?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, what'd you pick, John?
Oh, I picked Demon Hunter.
Yeah, you like the long range?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm usually a ranged attacker in any of these not arena.
Isometric dungeon crawler.
We would team up well because I like to be the big dumb guy that takes damage.
At the tank.
That's typically my style in these type of games. And in my first run, I went Crusader, and then now I did Necromancer, which he's not necessarily big dumb guy, but I'm like, yeah, let me change it up for once. But he has some abilities that allow for armor and things like that, and the health potion globes stuff. He can make those pop out like crazy, so it kind of works the same way. What's your experience been this time around, John, with Diablo?
So I actually played a lot. I know DJ is a huge fan of Warcraft 3. I think that's his favorite game of all time.
I believe
I've got some experience there too.
And I was more of a StarCraft guy myself, just the original in Brood War.
Yeah.
But I actually never played any of the Diablo series.
I hadn't either.
Diablo 3.
Yep.
And like it was a really fun experience. Like I got it basically on the recommendation of like Kevin and my friend and DJ's friend Mikey, who put a ton of hours into it and like convinced us that
Mikey was pressuring us for a while, like we gotta play because the only time I've played was that time at New Year's at your place.
And it was fun. Like it's a great like multiplayer game. I picked it up recently again. I was at a wedding shower for my upcoming nuptials.
Yes,
it was being held at a friend's house, and I knew my friend was going to be on dog duty in one of the rooms, and I was like, well, I guess we'll just play Diablo 3 while like your wife and my fiance are out having fun with everyone else. But yeah, no, it was just a great game of like, you know, we put it up on online, like we're just right next to each other talking, and in the meantime like slaying a bunch of demons, just
getting loot.
Like, oh god, getting so much loot, and so many like marginally better equipment. Slots of so many.
The numbers are just a little bit better.
Oh, that's and you know, those are just hitting the right buttons for me. Of just like, it's like, oh, this one I can salvage and turn into good crafting material. This one, oh no, I like those enchantments a bit better. Like,
or I like everything besides one thing. Let me go back to the Enchantress and have this one thing re-rolled to maybe get a better thing, and then I can re-roll until I get a better thing. Oh yeah.
And I'm still fairly early, like, because this was my first time through, like, so I'm assuming like you've done stuff in like the Paragons.
Yep.
And so I've still not even unlocked that entire mechanic, which I understand is like half of the game.
Yeah. Although I'm mostly stuck with just kind of storyline stuff for the most part, where my wife and I will just kind of, now for the second time, kind of breeze through the main campaign, and then you know, see all the extra stuff they've kind of added along the way, which to us, you know, we can't really tell what's super new or not, because it sounds like, just like you, we kind of came late to the game for this.
Now, do you feel like the one of the things with these games when there's like just tons of items and leveling up and all these categories and management of stuff like that, like when you're playing co-op, do you feel like the like going into your inventory all the time and doing that kind of stuff, does that kind of slow down the pace at all? Because that's something that kind of can sometimes kill these co-op games for me, is just like, man, there's too much time in the menus and we're like not really playing the game that much. Like a game that we talked about before, and to a way lesser extent than some other games that I'm maybe thinking of, but like Swords of Ditto felt a little bit like that, where it just can rub me the wrong way, like, or just like a little tedious. It slows the game down. Although I imagine if you're playing online, a little bit different. You're not always pausing the screen for other people necessarily.
Right. It never really bothered me.
Me neither.
And
okay.
It might just also be like the way that levels are constructed. There are usually like waves of enemies, or like you can wait before you go into the next area and like trigger the next like event or whatever. So like if you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've collected a ton of loot in this area, like let me check it all, and like you usually like just have that point in time like to refresh, like recharge all your bars. And
it's fun, like when you're even playing with someone else, I think it's fun to see, oh shit, look at that like new, staff that you got. Oh shit, it's got like a better fire damage and can poison things. Like I get excited about that too, even though it's not my character, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Can you pass stuff around like back and forth? Like if Tina picks something up that you're like, oh man, that would be great for my character, can you like, drop it for the other person, or no?
It's very character explicit for the different character classes.
Okay.
Also,
like weapons themselves.
Items don't spawn on the other player's screen. Like they are unique to your thing.
Interesting.
And so like they're like because I wasn't sure about that when I was playing most recently, where I was like, it was like, oh, like I have like 4 items on screen, like, and he's like, oh no, I only have 3, and then we picked them up and we're like, nope, we picked up completely different items. Like,
we really?
We weren't interacting with each other's screens at all, which I thought was really interesting, just because like, also when I was playing with him, like he had just started a new character, so he was like 10 levels lower than me. And even when like Kevin, when you were playing with Mikey and me on like New Year's, like you had literally
never played, booted
up, like, and I was like level 20 or something, and like they did a really good job of leveling us all like at the same level, or like at least scaling enemies to the exact same or to our appropriate levels, so that like we were all doing the same amount of damage. Like you were gaining way more experience than us.
I will say I felt a little lost because having never played it, I'm just like, what is going on? I'm just like leveling up, getting shit constantly. I'm just like, what is going on? I like like in theory, I like it.
Yeah.
But at least for like an onboarding experience, it was just like, It
was probably not the best thing for you to like for the first time to be jumping in with 2 people who are 30 levels higher than you.
I was going to say it's probably contributed to me. Not that it was definitely a fun time, but it was like it's definitely probably contributed to me not having started it again fresh, because I'm just like, man, it just seems daunting in my head, because it was like not stressing me out because we were just playing for fun, but like. Whenever when a game's not clicking with me, when I'm not getting it, there's something in my head. I'm like, there's something wrong with me. Why am I not understanding why this works or how this works? So.
You'll probably breeze through the first couple areas though, so you won't get bored.
Now that I'm beefed up,
yeah. And it's the way Tina and I play is we tend to explore like the entire given like map area of a section. Like, there's I guess you call it like a shadow of war effect if you're talking in strategy terms. But like the map is covered, and as you're walking around individually as players, you'll start uncovering that map and finding the crevices and saying, oh, you know what, look down there, there's a little bit of shadow on the mini map, we didn't quite go down there, and oh shit, there's another chest to open up, like, oh, that's cool. Or another swarm of enemies. Or the other thing that Tina and I kind of make sure we're doing as we're playing is the combo multiplier with the enemies is a huge factor in Diablo, and kind of adds the fun as you get like, oh, it's 25 kills in a row, it's 50 kills in a row, and like the tension is there to try and keep that combo going. And a lot of times you won't want to use
separate to extend it,
exactly,
and then you don't want to overextend yourself and be too far away from each other,
or go open that door so it will release like an extra guy or two before our timer runs out and we lose the combo. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. That adds a lot of tension and kind of keeps us engaged through that. Where even in that, like we're leaving items behind, loot behind, to make sure we keep that combo going first and foremost, and then coming back around to grab all the gold and loot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the multiplayer is probably the main thing that I play the game for at this point.
Yeah, I think what I need to do is just take the time to just acclimate and familiarize myself with the game's mechanics, just generally enough and then just join and play with one of you guys at some point. But I think it was just that I'm going in totally blind. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm trying to figure it out. Well, the game is also trying to like basically just shepherd me through the figuring it out process.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely I need to just take a half hour at some point and just start up the game proper. Because yeah, this does seem like a fun one to mindlessly mow down some enemies with some friends, but also I kind of like if you want to add that level of strategy of keeping combos going, or at least that level of finesse you can, So that's pretty cool. That's pretty intriguing to me.
Yeah, you can like John was saying, where you could wait to open doors or whatever else. You can kind of play this game at your own pace a lot of times, which is cool too.
Okay, nice. Anything more to add on that?
I'm going to keep playing it again. We will be beating this game again. It's one of our mainstays.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, from one game or one series or franchise or whatever that's been around forever to another, but definitely a way, way lesser known title, or at least I don't want to speak out of line. It's not something I've played, but definitely something that only caught my eye once the kind of, I don't know if it's a sequel per se, but the sequel of sorts that came out to this game is the only thing that made me aware of the original game. But John, why don't you take it away with some Kingdom of Loathing here?
Yeah, so Kingdom of Loathing is a free-to-play browser game that came out in the early 2000s. I believe it was 2004. Dang. And it was in the early age of online games. Of
like Flash games and
stuff.
Oh, yeah, well, Newgrounds.
Yeah. And Kingdom of Loathing was more like what set it apart from the other games of that era was that it was very text heavy, and that all the art was like stick figure art. There were 6 classes that you can choose from that you still have today, and like it was always a very like lighthearted and goofy game. Like the magic classes were sorcerer and pasta mancer, and it was like around food. The like warrior classes or turtle tamer and the seal clubber, and then the other 2 are the moxie classes, which were your rogues, were disco bandit and accordion thief. So like it's never been a game that has taken itself too seriously, and over the years, like I played it pretty much from its inception, and like before it added mechanic after mechanic after mechanic, it has become a game that has been around since like 2004. Like it is
a decade and a half.
Added so many different things, and I played it for a long time, and then actually went away from it for like a period of 6 years. And then once West of Loathing came out, which was Kingdom of Loathing was a very, fantasy sort of game, and West of Loathing was set in like this Western sort of series, and that came out on Switch and Steam and other platforms. And that was a more traditional RPG where you're moving around and not browser based, where you're clicking on images to advance to the next adventure.
So does it feel, Kingdom of Loathing that is, does it feel more like a point and click adventure kind of deal? Or I mean, what is like the general, I guess, gameplay per se?
It's I don't know. I can't describe it more than it's like, I can't compare it to really anything besides itself. Like I don't really know of anything. Like the core mechanic of it is centered around adventures, where every day, like 24-hour period, you are given 40 adventures that roll over, where you like click on an area where you can adventure and fight a monster, or like have a non-combat, and that will cost you 1 adventure, and then you eat food or you drink booze to gain more adventures. Like again, like it doesn't take itself seriously at all. Like in that, like I have various. I have a magical ability that lets me summon cocktail crafting ingredients, which make me craft better booze, which give me more adventures. But like, I've been playing this game pretty much daily
with the same character. Like, are you still carrying over the same account that you were playing with 15 years ago or whatever?
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
That's incredible.
But the thing is, like, around like after like a year or so after I started playing, like, it introduced a mechanic called Ascension, where you could basically restart the whole game but keep a skill that you gained. So like, even though you were a seal clubber, you could have a pastamancer skill.
So kind of like maybe not the same direct comparison, but kind of like an Into the Breach, where you can like carry a pilot over from a run. Is it kind of like that?
Kind of, but like these like could be marked permanent. So that like I have at this point, like, because I've been playing this game for over a decade and a half, I have like 200 skills from like different
it's not just one and then you replace it. You just keep stacking them.
Stack it forever. And like they introduced like since I even like stopped playing, they started and then resumed playing. Like, they introduced so many different mechanics. Like, standard ascensions was something that I didn't have when I stopped playing, that they introduced since I came back to it, where you can only have access to things that were introduced in the past couple years.
Okay.
So like things that were, introduced in like 2006, like you can't have access to that. You only have things that were like accessible from like a couple years back.
Interesting.
So like it keeps like, if you had something that was really powerful back then, like you don't have access to that until like you get outside of like the hardcore range, and then you can access it again after you like beat the naughty sorceress, who is the final boss of the game. Like, but there's so many things that I've come back to it, like, as I'm at a player who's played this game for so long. Like, I've gotten into PvP, which I never had done basically before this time, and that introduces so many different mechanics that I've never had, like, never bothered to really look at before. And like, I'm basically, as I'm playing each thing, like, they added seasonal paths, like for every couple months they add a new season, which the last one that they introduced was the Kingdom of Loathing, where what they did was and they really do, like, every season they like have these optional paths that you can choose to do every time you ascend that completely change the mechanics of the game. Kingdom of Loathing, what it is like the entire kingdom has been exploded. Like, there's been a space invader, which is the final boss of that run, has destroyed everything. But that effectively does is it means that you have access to every area from the get-go, and like it changes the way that you approach what you would, for me, have done hundreds of times in the past. Right. And it makes you think about like things in a fresh new way. The way the seasonal path before this one was like a randomizer path, where every single item would have its adjectives change, and then its buffs would change, like relative to that. So an item that would normally give you like extra muscle, like, could at this point like give you like extra initiative in an item. Like, everything was completely randomized from the beginning of the like run. So like things that you knew like did a specific thing or had like a specific enchantment were completely randomized. And it like made you approach like everything that you thought you, or like you had this previous knowledge of, was just completely useless at that point.
Okay.
And so
I'm always a fan of that. Like, again, we talked about it with Wilmot's Warehouse and a bunch of other games, but any game when a game throws you a curveball or just a way to subvert,
shakes it up.
You think you have this mechanic down, and that's I think why I get so sucked into these roguelike games, because like you have to be good at the mechanics, at least some of the ones that I tend to lean towards that are a little more action heavy. but like you're at the mercy of risk of rain, like we talked about too, last week. Like you're at the mercy of what you get, or at least you have to adapt your play style. Like, okay, I have a triple jump, so I'm just going to utilize that for now. And totally different in this game, obviously, but you're still, how often are they putting out these seasonal paths?
Basically,
is that like
every
week?
3 months.
Okay.
So like it's and like it's a game that like I'm personally playing daily. Like I will log in.
For how long? Like for just little bits and pieces? Or are you putting in?
I mean,
serious time, or
like an hour or so, like each day. Like
that's decent, man.
I get the the 40 adventures, which are the base amount that everybody gets, and then you have like the amount that you get from like food and other consumables. Like so, like I've gotten to the point where I'm doing like these different runs and these different ascensions, and I'm doing the core gameplay loops. But every like season, like they also have holidays like that match up to real life holidays. Like when Thanksgiving comes around, it's the Feast of Boris, or like. But they also have like an in-game calendar that like those feasts like also like pop up, and holidays are on like those specific in-game calendars. Like it was just like it was Friday the 13th like now, so like bad luck things happen like all throughout Friday the 13th.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And like like Crimbo is the Christmas season in the game, and there's always something big that happens literally every year. They've done every single year, and it's always a big event, and it lasts the whole like winter season usually.
Okay.
But yeah, like it's a game that I'm amazed that they're still updating. Like basically they have an item of the month every month that you can pay $10 and get like a Mr. Accessory, which allows you to buy it.
Yeah, because otherwise this is a free to play game, right? And they're still updating it like this. That's crazy.
I've spent money in the game, but like the amount of like content I've gotten is like the value proposition is incredible for the amount of money I've spent on this game versus how much I've gotten back is just amazing. And like West of Loathing was a great game that like it's a traditional payment structure, you pay for it up front, but it's really impressive that they've still done like the traditional game structure in like West of Loathing, and then also once they made West of Loathing, they've still made content for this game.
I was just going to say it's pretty impressive that they've kind of moved on to a new project in the same kind of I don't know if it's a franchise or whatever you want to call it, but then they went back to or have continued to keep updating.
They like didn't like give up on this to move on to that one. Like, and they just released an expansion for West of Loathing too.
Oh, nice.
A while back.
Cool.
So that
one's been on my radar. I actually I talked about Xbox Game Pass last episode, and I've got that on my PC.
Ooh, is that on
that's
there?
That is one of the games, not Kingdom of Loathing, but West of Loathing
is on.
I highly recommend it. It's obviously because like Kingdom of Loathing is basically an infinite loop game. Like West of Loathing has like an actual end to it.
Yeah, but
I highly recommend that game as well.
Okay, and these games are trading obviously pretty heavily on the humor, from what I understand.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, we're laughing pretty regularly just at you describing
it. But the actual,
but it holds up pretty well.
I think it holds up extremely well, especially for a game that has been out for so long.
Yeah.
Like it was very reference heavy at the beginning of it, but I still think it's a very endearing game. Like in terms of its humor and like just the overall writing, I think is very fun. It and West of Loathing are very like wordplay heavy and like just like general, I don't know.
Yeah, those folks are pretty funny. They actually have a podcast, the developers. It's called Video Games Hot Dog. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if everyone on the podcast is involved in those games, but it's a small most team. Of them, yeah.
Like honestly, it could be every single person involved in making the game.
But yeah, they're definitely. I haven't listened in a while, but they're pretty goofy, and you get that feeling from them, like they're just a bunch of buddies fucking around basically, and sometimes that works, but the reason I ask is because I just feel like there's a ton of humor in video games that does not work. It just so much falls flat, and sometimes it's a little just one-off joke and you just brush right past it. But there are some games I've played where I'm just like, I can't play it because his character just has to keep saying one-liners that are just so obnoxious and not funny that it just makes me project that onto the people that made the game, I guess. And I'm just like, I don't even want to support the people that think this is funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds so shitty, but
no, I'll say that like for a game that has been like constantly in my life for like the better part of like 2 decades, like I still like smile when I think about certain jokes in it, just because I'm like, yeah, this is a good dumb joke. Like it's never like so like it revels in the fact that it's making bad jokes, like
which I'm all for.
Yeah, it's never like, oh, we're super clever about this. It's like, no, this is a stupid joke.
This is pretty stupid, but you know you're gonna laugh.
Yeah. I mean, even again, there was another challenge path where like it was a vampire based mat or thing, and like the entire thing was like everyone who's giving you quests was like really like treating you gingerly because you're a vampire, and you're like, I'm just guys, I'm normal, please. I'm not gonna suck everyone's blood. Please stop being racist towards me. I'm not into your blood. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm definitely for what I mean. I've already downloaded West of Loathing, and I'm definitely going to check that out at this point. I mean, is there any connective tissue? I mean, other than the setting or theme or art style or whatever? But I mean, is there if you play West of Loathing, are you missing something if you haven't played Kingdom of Loathing? Are there like
they're pretty like they have
sure
like
there's some
same
inside jokes. And stuff,
they have same things and concepts in them, but they're pretty much like separate games. So like there's like, yeah,
you can jump in fresh into West of Loathing.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm definitely excited to look into both of these. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, speaking of being excited, this is something we've kind of teased for a little while here.
Finally,
saving it for the end, and maybe some of it we've maybe not even teased, but we've just talked about it a lot on the air, off the air. But we did a little tease in a previous episode. But Randall and John here are both pretty big basketball fans.
Oh yeah,
and more than basketball fans, Randall is a pretty big NBA 2K19 fan.
2K18 also.
Oh yeah, just 2K franchise, and I guess 2K20 just came out or is about to come out if it's not out yet.
Mm-hmm. But once it goes down to $3, I'll be sure to buy it.
Yeah, that was just a crazy deal that I think we all scooped up. But yeah, why don't you both take it away with a little basketball talk here?
Speaking of infinite replay value, yeah. So
yes.
I legitimately put 180.
What season are you on?
Yeah. So I actually had to uninstall NBA 2K19. Not because I ran out of room. I actually just recently bought a bigger micro SD card, but because I needed to play other video games. 190 hours is plenty on NBA 2K19. I think I had simmed into season 6.
Were you really at 190 already?
Yep.
Because we bought that game while we were recording.
Because it's only been 200 hours.
I mean, yeah.
Whenever that went down to $3 is when I bought it, which I think
it was during the finals. Yeah. Maybe? It was during the finals. Yeah.
Man,
that's crazy.
And then before that, I had 2K18, which I had like a year ago put in
well over
the same amount of hours into.
Yeah.
How old was Blake Griffin by the time that you finished?
he was going to retire, actually. I think.
Grandpa Griffin.
But speaking of Blake Griffin,
yes.
So where I last left all of you listeners, and John included, is that we were in approaching the Eastern Conference Finals. Mm-hmm. The Detroit Pistons, surrounded by Blake Griffin as the star of the show. At that time, he was a young, tender age of about 30 years old, so he's still in his prime. And it was him and DeAndre Jordan and Robert Covington, so he had a nice little defensive thing going on there, along with Coach Dwayne Casey. Coach Dwayne Casey got his ability to rebound from being fired from the Toronto Raptors, despite doing a Coach of the Year job.
Year, come on, yeah.
Unbelievable.
So I wanted to see him to glory as well, and the Pistons in general, because it had been a while since their last championship. So we had a rough road in the Western Conference. In the Eastern Conference Finals, we went up against the 76ers, and Joel Embiid was kind of beating on us a bit. Gave us a little bit of trouble. It took us 5 games to win that series instead of 4. So,
oh wow, the gentleman's sweep.
Exactly. It was an ode back to the 2004 NBA Finals. We wanted to. So then in the finals, we faced off against the Thunder. Russell Westbrook did his best, but we swept them. Blake Griffin got his finals MVP.
Good.
Yes, absolutely. Well deserved. He's a great 3-point shooter, and for some reason, defenders don't want to defend him. So I just kept shooting threes. So I think they were too afraid that he was going to keep dunking on them, so they would just like leave him wide open all the time.
It's just like pick your poison. It's like at least you're not going to get posterized if you try to defend the dunk. Let him take the 3, and you're not going to look that bad.
Yeah.
If the next trading card comes out and Blake Griffin's dunking on your ass,
you got your career to think about. You don't want to be showing those posterized photos on Twitter, you know?
You got to look out for it. You got a shoe deal that's on
which
the
are
line
all
here.
my header images are just Twitter dumb faces of NBA players.
So that being said, I traded away Blake Griffin right after that.
Ooh. How'd that work out for you? You get any good deals? Like, how do you feel like the trade value works? Like, do you feel like because some of these games, it feels like you just mix and match until the team just decides, okay, that's a fair trade. But do you feel like it makes you offer up a legit fair deal?
So it goes even deeper than that. So you have to hire GMs and assistant GMs that have different skills in trading
Are they legit GMs from like the league?
Some of them, yeah. Some of them are like generated, and some of them are legit. Yeah, GMs, coaches, assistant coaches, ex-players.
Who is your GM?
What's that?
Who is your GM?
He was one of the ones that was like generated by the game. He wasn't like an official guy, but he had like really good stats in both trading and signing players to like reasonable contracts. But his downside was that he would leak all trading rumors to the press like every single time. And then that would force me to be in front of the press and be like, you know what? No, it's just simply business, guys. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
And does that like have negative effects on? Jesus.
So I this is interesting. I mean, we've talked about this already. This is the my career mode, right?
This is the my GM mode.
My GM mode. That's
Yes.
right. That's right.
Yes.
And so is that a separate mode? Is there also a my career mode?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So the my career is where you're just kind of like playing as one individual player,
right?
And my GM, you're kind of running the whole team, but you are still playing the games, right?
Yes.
It's not. Just
and there's also my
end.
league, which is even like a larger scope out.
Jeez.
Are you Adam Silver in that? And you're trying
kind of are in that. I have not played my league. I just played my
You're trying to maximize the profits of the entire league and make sure that Charlotte gets a good team.
Yes. And make sure everybody has extra logos on their uniforms. Yes.
Oh man. That's crazy though. That's pretty interesting. Like, again, I know we've talked about this, but like it's for whatever reason kind of hitting home right now that this game is kind of a strategy game.
It is.
With which apparently is what our podcast is all about these days.
And honestly, that's what keeps driving me, or was driving me back to it. Like, I had not way more fun, but more fun doing the team building and the trades and like signing players to reasonable contracts, or like those type of things interested me more than actually playing the games out most of the time, to be honest.
Yeah, I could see that, but I could also see you having the control of those other elements, then making the games more interesting to play, because you're like, hey, I want to see how this works out with this new center we just got.
Team. Of course. Yeah. And I did. Like, I got rid of practically everybody besides a couple of my, younger players, and I built around them and traded Griffin away for players like Clint Capella and like Jonathan Isaac and some of these defensive lanky dudes. Ooh. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Real.
And I actually fired Dwayne Casey too, because he wasn't as good as defense. So
sorry. Who'd you get?
Sorry, Dwayne. You weren't focused on defense enough. I needed more defense. I have Midwestern roots. That's how it works. So, and then I basically got a bunch of like beefy defensive dudes and a lot of minimum contract value deals, because you also have these players that are just free agents sitting out there that other teams haven't scooped up. So you get them on minimum deals for 1 year, and you just fill out your 13 to 15 player roster that way and make trades along the way before the trade deadline. So, yeah, that's kind of an infinite loop, and I just had to stop myself. I did end up winning the championship again. I traded back for Blake Griffin.
Nice.
Got him for like nothing. Yeah.
Nice. Hometown hero.
But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the further along you get in the game, are you getting like more like computer generated characters?
Yes.
Okay, so like, was your team like mostly them by that point, or were you
probably about half and half by the time I quit? Yeah,
gotcha.
Which was fine. That was fine to me too, because like I said before, I don't follow college basketball as closely, so like it's whatever to me either way.
Might as well be just college players,
right?
Yeah,
point.
And you actually do have the option to load in like custom rosters for that, though, for the incoming rookies. You could in theory spend the time to make Zion be a player that's available to draft.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, just on a separate note, have you seen NBA Y2K by John Boyce?
No.
Oh God, that's a great series on SB Nation. It's a series that posits the question of what would happen if everybody was awful at basketball, and what would cause the death of basketball. And he just loads the worst characters possible into like every draft class for like decades and sees the collapse of the sport.
Drive basketball into the ground.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shame though. It'd be nice if there's a lot of these games that come out that are kind of like almost like a game. I think the term that gets used a lot is like games as service. It's like this game that even stuff like Dead Cells. It's like this game that like I think that company Motion Twin just technically split into two separate companies, because like half the team wanted to keep working on Dead Cells and just keep chipping away at that game, and half the team was like, we want to start doing something new. So like, well, why don't we just make this two separate entities? Like, it's all still the same people, I guess. I don't know all the details, but just heard something about that. So like, it seems like I would be way more interested in something like this if it was like, hey, this is the NBA2K game, and you buy that, and then every year you spend $10 or $5 to just get the new roster, all the new stuff, maybe some new updates with modes. Like, I just like with games like this, or games like I know you've been playing a bunch of Smash Brothers lately, John, or just in general, just play a lot of that. But like, like stuff like that, like. I was just reading something recently where like Sakurai was like, this will probably be the last, or he didn't say this will be the last Smash game, but he said this will be the biggest. Before. He said like this will be the biggest Smash game. Like there's never going to be more.
Let him do something else in his
let him
life,
retire,
please.
But like, why not just let this Smash game just be the Smash game and just keep adding stuff to it until you're satisfied, and then if you're not satisfied, then I guess just never stop. Just keep adding stuff or port it to new like just let that. Honestly, thing live on, and,
I do think Nintendo's getting a little better at that though, with like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and the
that's
Smash
what I mean.
Brothers DLC and some of that stuff. I think they're starting to go in that angle a little bit more.
Yeah, because I mean, I would love if like, hey, the new Mario Kart game is just Mario Kart, and you just again every couple years, and again you can choose to spend the money if you want or not. But it's just or maybe they add a new maybe a couple years later they decide, hey, there's going to be actually like not the underwater stuff, but there's actually like a hovercraft or something, like the things that can actually change the gameplay a little, but like you could still keep that base format as like the main game, I guess. And not to say, because that does maybe stifle some innovation, but I just like the idea of like, I'd be a lot more interested in these games if it was like something, because I think I would, even though I don't follow college basketball, I think I would be a little bit bummed if like, hey, all these people are just fake, made up people that I don't recognize.
Like however many years down the road, like you're not getting like any actual NBA players.
Right.
Yeah, a little disconnect from that, especially if you're a huge basketball fan. Like, again, for me, I'd just be kind of playing blindly, and I would only recognize names like Zion Williams as far as college goes, you know, somebody at the top of their class, essentially. So it wouldn't be a huge factor for me, but I do know that that's something that I could see being a disconnect if you're a huge basketball fan.
I will say, was it you were playing 2K19 or 2K18?
2K19 most recently. I played both, and they're very, very much the same engine, to Kevin's
point. Is
2K19
point. The one that introduced WNBA players?
No, that's actually coming now in 2K20.
So
that is a big change.
Yeah, 2K20 finally added WNBA players.
It's super cool.
The whole league or whatever.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I will say it's great also because the Chicago Sky are in the playoffs right now.
Hell yeah.
Actually,
the Storm are not too bad either, for what that's worth. So
all right, Mr. Seattle.
But I will say I do need to call out 2K a little bit, because the Switch version, at the very least, has had some severe bugs, both in the 2K18 and 2K19 versions, which keep me from a full out recommendation, despite 190 hours in both. There's some really weird things, like in 2K19, like Robert Covington. He kept asking me for a contract extension, so I ended up giving him 2 contract extensions in the same free agency period, just because, like, dude, leave me alone. All right, you're signed for like the next 7 years. Is that good enough now? Like, I don't know what else to tell you. So like, there's a bug there where that shouldn't have been happening.
But did like prevent you from playing the game, or like,
no,
was it just
no, it wasn't like a full stop, and I ended up trading him away because I was just annoyed by him, even though he's really good defensively. And then, like, my GM, my actual character, my avatar kept changing, like, his physical appearances. It didn't look the same. Like, oh, that's like, I don't really care, but it seems like there's a continuity thing that's
it's a roguelike. It's another roguelike, procedurally generated GMs.
And then, like, even the game started breaking down over time after a few seasons, where one of the options when you take timeouts is you can have some different like defensive factors you can focus on, and one of them's like, okay, Giannis is killing us, like, let's focus on him, make sure he like gives up the ball. Like, you could no longer pick a player to focus on for defense. Like that was just now blank.
I think that's just like because I encountered a similar thing with like Skyrim in once I reached like level 160, where it's just like the game is like, you should not be playing this game this long.
You hit the end
no
game
one's beta
a long time ago.
What are you doing?
Like, no, we don't know how magic works at this point.
Yes. So that was the game telling me I needed to be done. So I guess that wasn't all bad. But yeah. I had to get that in there too, that was a thing that happened. But in general,
190 hours is I think a good amount of value proposition.
I would say so. Yeah, I can't
for
really
$3. What does that even break down to? Just ridiculous. Yeah, I do need to go back and check this out a little more, because I played just like a little bit of like just learning the basics, you know. And I talked about this on the podcast before, and it is hard to like get down the timing of shots and stuff. So I need to check this out a little more and see if I can't put my Switch through the paces itself. So
let's go, Kevin. I'll reinstall it.
And actually, is there online play? Is that something? Could we play online together?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's no way I can hold a candle to you at this point, but
I'll play as like the Wizards or something.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
Wow.
Okay, as long as I got Kevin Durant, I should be okay.
Charlotte Hornets.
Also, $3 for 190 hours is $0.01 per hour.
It's insane. It's totally nuts.
That's amazing. That's actually amazing. So yeah, great value, great game. No.
It is in general, it is a great game. It's a phenomenal basketball game, despite those issues.
Yeah, and they take it to the next level. It is interesting to see that they take that whole like running a team simulation and really explore that to like pretty much as deep as you can go.
Absolutely.
In a video game,
and that's just one mode out of like 3 or 4. Like, seriously.
Yeah, and that's not even the deepest of the modes.
No.
Yeah, if you're saying there's this My League mode, and who knows what they've added to...
And My Career has its own, like, story mode, like, fully voice acted and everything. There's tons of stuff.
Jeez. All right. Well, I think now that we've caught up on our basketball talk, I think we can. Basketball Jones, Basketball Johns. But I think we can leave it there for this week. Again, for the month of September, we're all playing through Katana Zero, which I don't think any of us have actually started yet, but we'll be playing it soon and talking about that at the end of the month. And looking forward to getting to that one. It's another, I haven't played, at least personally, I've kind of been veering away from some of my more normal gaming tendencies. So I'm kind of excited to go back to like a 2D Twitch platformer action kind of thing. So yeah, looking forward to playing that and talking about it at the end of the month. And again, John, thanks for joining us for yet another episode.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is a pretty long streak here. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we can have you back on again soon. And again, thanks for coming through in a pinch. And until next time, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
I love fast breaks.
I will get into the game that we specifically went to because it was Chicago Sky up against the Mystics, who at the time, and I think they're probably still the first seed, like they were like far and away like the number one seed. And like it was the Sky basically up against Ellen Adeladon, who is the fucking powerhouse this season. And it's every time like the Sky eventually won the game, but like every single time Don got the ball, I was just like, fuck, we're done. We had a good run.
Damn.
And she had a face mask on, so like as soon as she came out with the face mask, I was like, we're fucked.
Yep, going into shredder mode. That is definitely the meta of face masks in basketball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so you're about to get crushed.